All right, Niner fans. I know that this last weekend's game was disappointing, but it's Tuesday. And so Coach and I are here to put a bow on the game and then look forward so that we can get excited. This team is still really, really good. One of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best team in the NFL. It's not like the 49ers are the only team losing. Every team has at least one loss to this point. Plenty of reasons for optimism. So, like I said, bow on the last game. Looking forward to the next one. We're going to talk about a ton next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday. Normally, I got my guy So Real Sunil with me, but he was unable to make it. So I've got a very, very good backup plan here in the coach. What's up, coach?
What's up, Jess, man? Hey, let's get into some stuff. Let's get into it, man. You know I love being on the platform. As you know, as everybody knows, me and you were boys, and I'm ready to get into it, man. I feel like today, this weekend's loss really is going to contextualize some things.
Yeah, I think so as well. And we've had plenty of conversation, but again, it's very different when we are on platform. A lot of people, I was surprised, coach. This is
Mhm.
just me personally. When I watch the game, and I always like to give my real honest thoughts about what I thought during the game. I'm not one of these guys that comes on and tries to rewrite history. What were my thoughts during the game? And when I was watching the game live, there wasn't a time where I sat back and was frustrated with what Kyle Shanahan was doing. There have been games, trust me, where I'm like, dude, change it up. The only thing that I tweeted out during the game was I wish they would get away from tight formations. I felt like they were running tight formations too much,
Mhm.
giving the Browns a little bit of an out. I feel like the 49ers sometimes are at their best when they spread everybody out. And then instead of going vertical, they go horizontal. That was the only real complaint that I had live. And then I got on the post game and everybody seemed to be going after Kyle Shanahan. It was a little bit surprising for me, not going to lie.
Mhm.
Had a couple days to digest things, watch the all 22. My opinions really haven't changed a ton, but you might think differently. Looking back on that game, coach, what could or should Kyle Shanahan have done differently to change the outcome of that game?
We should have added a little bit more variety in our running game. Um, we've been saying it lightly, and it's hard to talk about uh, what you don't like about the team or just some areas of improvement when you're 5-0. But Christian McCaffrey is getting used too much. I feel as though that we can start with a more balanced run attack when it comes to just personnel. JP Mason needs to start seeing touches early. We haven't seen TDP at all. I don't know. If Elijah Mitchell is on the field, I'm assuming he's healthy. Okay, like full stop. If he's on the field, he's healthy. And moving forward, it's it's no secret that Christian McCaffrey is what makes our offense special and what makes our offense Super Bowl contenders to put us over the top. And I would like to see a more balanced running attack from just a frequency perspective. Like, let's get some other guys carries earlier in the game. Also, uh, it's time for us to stop engineering around the guys that we don't want to block. We're just gonna have to play. And I understand that we, from a blocking perspective up front, we can really get cute and get creative with being able to single out a TJ Watt or to be able to play a lot of mind games and a lot of give a lot of different looks to Aaron Donald or a Michael Parsons, but it's a whole different ball game when you scheming for not just Miles Garrett, but you scheming for an entire front four where everybody literally can get home and be a threat in the run game. I feel like our schemes were curated to kind of go at Miles Garrett, but a lot of the times Miles Garrett wasn't making a factor. It was it was Davius White. It was other players. It was Dalvin Tomlinson. Dalvin Tomlinson made so much of an impact on the run game in this game against the Browns, but yet he only recorded one tackle the entire game. Like that right there shows that there's ways that you can dominate a game without showing up on the stat line, and it showed. They were holding our offensive linemen. They weren't letting screens get open. It's just I feel like our offensive line played against a defensive line who was not preoccupied with just beating the man in front of them, but they played a defensive line with a plan. These guys had a plan. They knew what to expect from our offensive line. So much so that you could see them holding our offensive line for screens. You could see them blowing up on bull rushes on outside and inside zone where you could tell that they were just trying to get penetration. They owned the line of scrimmage. And I feel like that was something that we noticed early and we necessarily just couldn't do anything about because you don't know you're a physical team until you play one, right? You do not know you're a physical team until you play one. And we played one. And, from the trenches perspective, which is, my modus operandi, that's kind of like where I see football from the trenches out, we got dominated.
Yeah, I mean, this was the real first physical team that the 49ers have played.
Hmm.
And the 49ers are the big bullies on the block. They have been for quite some time. It does seem like every year they run into a team that is just as physical. And the
Hmm.
first time that they run into them, they're kind of shell shocked a little bit. But then as the
Yeah.
season goes on, when they run into that team again or they run into a similar team, it's like, okay, now we know we got to amp it up another level. We can't just be our normal selves. I talked a little bit earlier about how I felt the 49ers were feeling themselves a little bit too much. I think that much was clear. You saw
Yeah.
the argument, the pregame
The
uh
pregame.
what scuffle, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. The
You saw
kerfuffle.
Jawan Jennings dancing after the first down like they had won the game there on the final drive. There was just a lot of little things. But as far as Kyle Shanahan goes, I'll tell you what, coach, I think Kyle Shanahan lost this game. If we're putting it on him, which it's not
Hmm.
fully on him, but for
Hmm.
those that want to put it on him, he lost this game the previous 5 weeks. And what I mean by that is he didn't have a game plan once CMC was out because he's relied on CMC way too much. And once CMC was out, that was it. It was
He
over for
admitted
him.
as much.
Yeah,
He admitted
he
as
did.
much.
He
He said
did.
that I was not prepared. I was not prepared not only to lose CMC but to lose Debo at the same time, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't prepared for it. I mean, you can give Kyle, you can give a tip of the hat to Kyle for at least being honest, but that's not acceptable. Just because you were honest doesn't mean that it's acceptable, right? We're in year 7 of this regime, and you mean to tell me that with all of the weapons that you have, you're not prepared for the number one thing that the entire NFL is known for? That's attrition. Like that's injuries. If how can you say that you weren't prepared for losing both CMC and Debo Samuel with number one, the type of football that we play, number two, with both of their histories, and number three, with what you know is at stake for the year, for the success, and what you put on Brock if you don't have a plan. It was kind of wild that he actually just kind of like admitted that as if we weren't listening. But I agree with you. like uh not understanding that you're going to go play on the road in inclement weather against the number one defense in the league and not having a backup plan or at the very least being shocked that you lost two of your best players on offense and not having a plan. Um Kyle's got to own it. Everybody stands on the carpet on this team, right? Um, Brock, the defense, CMC, Brandon Ayuk, Debo put himself on the carpet before the season even started,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Kyle is no special. He's no different. He's not special, right? And what was worrisome to me about this game where everybody can, get on the kicker. Cool, right? If you really just want to be
That's the
surface,
low hanging fruit. It is in this
yes. If you
game.
want to be
Yeah.
surface level about it, yes. All right. Burn Jake Moody at the stake, whatever. Kickers have punchable faces. We get it. But but at the same time, you have to understand that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, man. Like you can't tout how proud you are of the fact that we're averaging 30 points a game, right? And then double down on it when we beat a team in Dallas who saw us coming, right? That was kind of like when all of this stuff when we
Yeah.
kind of like went over the like a little bit of hyperbole. Myself,
Yeah.
I said we are the best team in football. Like I was on an emotional high. But if you look at it, um when even when we after us beating the Cowboys, you have to understand us scoring 19 points, and being proud of the fact that we score 30 a game. We start out fast. We are running through teams like a buzzsaw. And then we face a team in Dallas who saw us coming. And the reaction was through the roof with euphoria and elation. You got to put the same scrutinous eye on the fact that we faced the number one defense on the road and we lost the two players who we all are worried about losing on our offense outside of Trent, right? And we only put up 19 points and we struggled. We struggled.
Not
That's
even. We
alarming.
only put up 17. They put up 19.
17. I'm sorry. We only put up
And
17.
seven of
That's
those
true.
came from the defense. Like, let's keep it a
Yeah.
buck. The 49ers scored 10 points on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like,
They
that's
scored. Thank
offensively, they
you.
scored 10.
They scored 10 points. And then, all right, cool. Offense, defense, you can put it on the defense all you want. For the defense, yes, they got ran on, okay? But the defense had a really legit excuse in not having Dre Greenlaw, okay? And on top of it, they got 2 picks. They did their job. It's like I understand that we're used to our defense looking a certain way, but for all in terms of purposes, if you can look at the net of Brock and say, oh, well, Brock had an okay day. Look at that last drive, right? He got us in chance, but it was Jake Moody who really shit the bed and didn't get it done. It's cool, but then you also got to look at the fact of that's the same narrative that we used to give Jimmy. Okay, giving Jimmy credit for putting out his own fires. We used to do that all the time. Now, is that fair to Brock? No. Brock is young and literally, this is the first blemish on his entire record, right? You have to have hindsight with Brock, right? We're not going to do Brock like we know how other people would do other people. We're going to give Brock a chance,
For sure.
okay? Brock deserves our grace because of what he's shown thus far. However, you have to admit that Kyle didn't seem too prepared to be able to support Brock once he lost to Debo and CMC.
Hmm.
There were a lot of times where you could say, oh, well, Brock threw a bad pass here. Brock was off target here. Brock looked like the game was bigger than him in those moments. You could see the size of the game on his face. A lot of that was on Kyle for not being prepared to walk Brock through. That's on Kyle, right? We can't keep pushing this kid as if he's top 5, but forget the fact that he needs all of the support of a second-year player who hasn't even played a full season. That's what's being missed in Brock's poor performance. It's the fact that once he started playing poor, it didn't seem like there was anything around him to support him.
Mm.
That's what was alarming.
Yeah. And I think, maybe even Kyle fell for it a little bit because anybody who's watched football long enough knows that that game was eventually going to happen to Brock. Like, this
Yeah,
is, it happens to everybody.
everybody.
So when it did happen to Brock, Kyle almost had no answers to help him out. It's like, well, I'll just keep throwing on all these downs and he'll figure it out. It's like, well, no, he just doesn't have it today. And
Mm-mm.
you got to figure out a way to win around that. And he couldn't.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I just it's you don't want to go off on the deep end. It literally is the first loss,
yes.
right? So you want to be pragmatic in the fact that we were on the road, okay? We were playing against a very inspired defense. In fact, this isn't just the number one defense. This is pretty much a historically paced defense for where they're going in the season right
Yeah.
now. This isn't just the average run of the mill 2024 good defense. This defense is historic.
Yeah.
But um
I think a lot of that, personally, we'll see how it goes throughout the season. I think a lot of that is they've played very bad quarterbacks to this point, but we'll
They
see.
have, and Lamar did his thing against them.
Yeah.
Lamar had his way. But I will say that I just think that Kyle should have realized. I think he should have circled the wagons a little bit sooner around Brock. The 4 minute drill with three straight passes. Yeah, there was a penalty, and you had to keep passing the ball. But I just see it seemed as though that all Brock was equipped with in those moments were just the plays, right? Just the offense. Like there wasn't anything quick for him to like. I was expecting to see some of what we saw in the last drive earlier on in the game when we were struggling. I was expecting to see quicker throws, getting Brock in rhythm right away, getting him throws that he likes, being able to just pitch and catch, honestly, and then quite frankly, the run game. The run game. I was expecting to see much more out of the run game, especially when Christian McCaffrey went down. I almost feel as though that it almost lended itself to say, all right, well, let's slow this down. We're more talented than them. Let's use TDP and JP Mason and run the ball. But I feel as though after watching the tape, like we both watched, that defensive line was not rocking. They was not having it. They weren't. We just couldn't run the ball on them. You know,
Yeah.
it's we couldn't run the ball on them. That defensive line tore us a new one. It's the truth.
Yeah. They definitely, and that's the other thing too, is it's the NFL. These guys
Hmm.
all get paid.
Hmm.
Sometimes the other team's just better on that day. And that's what
Yeah.
happened. I mean, that team was better than the 49ers on that given day. And
Hmm.
frankly, I think styles make fights. If the 49ers were fully healthy and the Browns are fully healthy, that might be the result in, 8 out of 10 of those matchups. Maybe they just don't match up well with the Browns. And that's just the way that it is.
Right. I mean, do we beat the Browns if they're healthy? You know
I
what I
don't know.
mean?
I can't say
If
that they
Nick
would.
Chubb plays today, if Nick Chubb plays, and if Deshaun Watson plays, do
And
we beat the
Batonio,
Browns? Right? Yeah. And one of the
their
best
best
guard, one of the
offensive
best.
lineman was out
Yeah,
too.
their best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it all plays. I mean, the
Yeah.
same way we want to talk about Jake Moody, the Browns missed their first field goal, guys.
Yeah.
They missed
Yep.
their first field goal, right? So, you know, this one was a wake up call. It's nothing to, we don't got to break the alarm. It's nothing to panic over. But this was a wake up call because you're lying if you didn't say that we didn't come in extremely confident. And that's being nice about it. We came in more than confident and we kind of got humbled.
Yeah, most certainly. Brother Bob says, so happy to see this combo. CMC good, Moody shaky. CMC, it's a pain tolerance thing. I think he'll probably miss Sunday, I would hope, actually. And then we'll see after that. Pissed off brother Bob comes back in and says, Nails and coach, I'm spoiled. Hopkins over Moody. Simple. Yeah, the Moody thing is whatever. It is
I
what it
mean,
is.
but he set him up though. I mean, when you draft a kicker in the third round, he's got to
Yeah.
be anything but pristine.
What
He's got to be
right.
perfect.
Yeah, what do you think's gonna
So
happen?
yeah, he's doomed.
Matt 268 coming over in on your channel says silver lining, Brock still put the team in position to win. Let's talk about that for a second. Because I'm
Mhm.
actually kind of tired of that narrative.
Okay.
I just am. And it's not I just feel like we're not honest sometimes when these conversations happen. Like, is it just okay? Like, it was okay for 5 weeks to like praise Brock and say he's the league MVP or on the way to being the league MVP and he's playing great. And I said he was a top 3 quarterback right now. Not actually like I would take him top 3, but if I'm doing quarterback power rankings, I had him top 3. So when he plays bad, it's not, hey, yeah, I was waiting for this. Like
Right.
I got, I'm burning crosses on his front lawn, and I told you he sucked. This is not what this is. Like, I believe in Brock. I think he's gonna play fine. In fact, he's gonna be the topic next, and I'll just kind of parlay it into the next topic.
Okay.
But everybody's got this thought. I've heard two narratives coming out of this game about Brock Purdy. One was Well, I mean, when he had CMC the first drive before it rained, it looked great. What did he do that drive? It was literally
Literally.
CMC run, CMC run, CMC run, face mask, CMC run, JP Mason run. Oh, shovel pass behind the line of scrimmage. CMC takes it 12 yards touchdown. He literally had one shovel pass on the whole drive.
That
Unless
was
I'm
his
mistaken. That's the way I remember that drive.
that's the way the entire drive went.
So he looked great based on what? And then the final drive, he has 3 incompletions. One is the first one of the drive. He throws it directly in the chest of a defender. Jennings, thank God, gets his hand out and stops it from being caught. Otherwise, it's game over, right? He misses Ayuk deep. Ayuk was very tightly covered. I don't think any quarterback in the league completes that pass, but he didn't even put it in a position for Ayuk to have a chance or to draw a pass interference or nothing. Then it's third down, throws short of the sticks. They get the PI. I actually thought that was a good play by him
It
because
was. You trusted him.
he recognized he put the ball exactly where it should be. Jennings would have caught it, you know what I mean? And then it was just a PI. But then he follows it up with a short pass to Ayuk, a 4-yard pass that Ayuk takes another 23 yards or whatever it is.
Yeah, 20
And
plus yard
then,
yak.
yeah, then he has Jennings on an out pattern, wide open, no pressure, airmails him. He hits Ayuk on a slant and then Jennings on an out pattern on the left. That's not, to me, that wasn't exactly ice water in his veins. Like, oh, now he's clutching up. Like, no, he's missed 3 passes on that very drive, and one of them should be picked. Like, he didn't have command of the offense all game long. So he goes from completing 44% or whatever on the game to 50% in the final drive. And it's like, oh, Brock really clutched up.
We were waiting on that.
I don't believe
Yeah.
in that narrative. I'm sorry. I didn't see it that way. I just didn't.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a disservice. It's a disservice to the development of Brock, really. It says that you're much worried about how the kid looks than actually him developing as a franchise quarterback. And that's the real question. That's the question that I'm never going to let go until it's answered. Do you want Brock for right now, or do you truly see him as a franchise quarterback? You can't say that you see Brock as a top 10 quarterback, but the moment he has a game like this, automatically start number one, not being truthful
Let
about
me
what
say
you saw.
this. Yeah, let me say this real quick, coach. And I
Go ahead.
challenge anybody who saw it different and thinks, "Oh, Jesse's being a hater right now. He can't give him any credit." If just take the stickers off the helmet, right? Take the stickers off the helmet, put on Seahawks colors and Seahawks stickers. If you're watching Geno Smith do exactly what Brock Purdy just did, and then Seahawks fans come out of the woodwork and say, "Well, but the final drive." Come on, man. You
We're
know you
blasting
would
him.
call
We're
BS.
blasting him. We're
You'd call
blasting him.
BS. You'd
Yes, we
blast
would.
him. He looked terrible. Final drive, he almost threw a pit. You would say all
He looked
those
like
things.
ass.
So
We're not doing that.
you can't say those things. And I know you would. And then in the same breath be like, yeah, but Purdy, I mean, we're feeling good over here. Like, no, he's gonna be fine. Like both things are true, I believe. He's gonna be fine. I think he's gonna have a hell of a game this next week against a bad Minnesota defense. I think it's a get right game. Whether CMC plays or not, now that if they know he's not playing, it's very different knowing he's not playing versus losing him mid game. I think Purdy's going to ball out this weekend no matter what. That can be true, but also like let's just be real about what actually happened. Like it didn't go down the way that people are spinning it. I think people are trying to make themselves feel good because they're a little bit worried for whatever reason. They don't want to admit it. And it's like, no, just have confidence. He'll be fine. He's going to be fine.
He's got no choice but to be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
like, the Rams game was somebody where everybody was saying, well, if this is his floor, then we're 100% fine with him playing the way he did against the Rams. Well, it's not his floor. Okay. The Browns happened. And not to say that he's going to keep doing this week after week, because I don't believe that. I feel like he is going to have a bounce back game against Minnesota. They're inside, they're away from the weather, they're playing against a team that they know, and they're playing against probably a starkly different caliber of defense that they just played the week before. And they're motivated. There's a part of them that knows that they deserve to lose this game. As a matter of fact, there were players that came out and said, we didn't deserve to win this game. Trent Williams came out and said that. Nick Bosa came out and said, we didn't deserve to win this game. And when you have a team that's trying to achieve the goals that we are throughout the season, then we have a different standard than everybody else. And this was a game that we should not have lost, but at the same time, we deserve to lose. And with Brock, when you don't recognize Brock's struggles in a game, you're letting Kyle off the hook because it's not on Brock to just turn it all on. It's not on Brock to just turn it around on himself.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
not on Brock. And that's what happens when you push a narrative saying that Brock is elite. Because when you say that he's top 10, then you're saying that he's fringe elite. And when he's fringe elite, you blast fringe elite quarterbacks for having a game like they did last Sunday. And he doesn't deserve that. That's why you don't put him as high, because you have to judge him by the criteria and the standard that you put him at. So there's nothing wrong with understanding that Brock has not finished a full season of games. He's doing very well and he's trending up and he's showing things inside of his game that are far beyond his years in development of where he should be.
Yes.
And we're in
yes.
a wait and see moment because he's in a great position of being on a team with a lot of great weapons, a good defense, and an offensive coach who is supposed to be an expert at making his job easy.
Yep.
So when Brock has games like the Browns, I'm not looking at Brock. I'm looking at Kyle. I'm looking at Kyle. For Brock to have the game he did, and then for Kyle to come out and say that he was unprepared for this to happen, who's leading the team? Is it Brock or is it you? So all of it's on Brock. Just when we lose CMC, we understand how hard you're utilizing him. Damn near all of the offense is featured around him. So we lose Brock. I mean, we lose CMC and Debo, and now it's on our quarterback, our young quarterback who just came out, who's just coming off of a UCL surgery. That's what we're doing. So I want us to elevate the conversation. All of the quarterbacks who are here, right? There's nobody else coming. So we need to start looking at Kyle to make sure that he develops Brock, because the truth of the matter is that he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't developed a quarterback yet. And this is quarterback number 3 that's supposed to be the guy. So, Kyle, this is on you, not Brock.
Yeah, like if Brock, like let's just say, and I don't think it's going to happen, but like let's just say that Brock doesn't pan out for whatever reason. Are you blaming Kyle or are you blaming Brock? Because I'm blaming Kyle. I just am. You can't continue to churn through quarterbacks at this rate and expect to just be, oh, it's always the quarterback's fault. Like, no, at some point you get divorced 3 times. Like, you got to look in the mirror.
If Brock doesn't make it, how can we look at Kyle as understanding what to do with quarterbacks? Honestly, you got Jimmy, you drafted CJ, you drafted Nick Mullins. They didn't work out. Cool. We understand. Washed, mid, pipe dreams. Then John goes out and goes and gets Jimmy. You begrudgingly take him on, and he's the best thing that you've had in the building since you get there. You actively are trying to get rid of Jimmy while we're winning. You're trying to get rid of him. You whiff on all of these guys in free agency, and then you go and get Trey, and that is done with literally 4 games on the field. You luck up on the last pick of the draft, and you can't make it through the season with this kid. I'm looking at Kyle. This ain't on Brock. It ain't on Brock. You know what I'm saying?
Niner Gang says, hasn't Brock earned a bad day? We all have one. Yes.
Yes. Brock has earned our grace.
Don't misunderstand being critical and calling the game what it is. Just telling you how I see it, was saying he doesn't get to have those. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying it wasn't good. Even in the final drive that everybody says was amazing and he finally put it together, I don't think it was good then. But I'm not saying he's not good or he doesn't deserve to have these or hasn't earned these. I mean, geez, man, like when you play 15 good games in a row, of course he deserves to have one. Do you think there's a quarterback in history that doesn't have multiple bad games every single season? The best quarterbacks ever have multiple bad games every single season. So Brock hasn't only earned the one; he gets 2 or 3 more of these. If we're being frank, throughout the regular season, he gets
So
a
I
few
mean,
more of these.
and then you know what? If you have fans, I'm sorry for cutting in, but if you
Yeah,
have fans who want to carry Kyle's water, then you have to start asking fans how many bad games are you willing to give Kyle?
yeah,
How many bad games are you willing to give Kyle? Because I know that there's some fans sitting here like, well, Kyle deserves to have a bad game. Well, how many games are you willing to give the head coach that just got an extension? How many? Because this one falls on everybody who has a different narrative. This falls on the Quest for Six fans. This calls for the Brock Purdy fans. This calls for the trade truthers. All of us want to be able to have a stable franchise. So this is something that coincidentally brings the whole room together. So who are going to be the fans that carry Kyle's water? Who are those fans going to be?
yeah, exactly. You guys are way too emotional, man. I promise you it's not that deep. Like, nobody said that Brock Purdy doesn't get to have a bad, a bad game. You guys aren't hearing what I'm saying. You're just
No,
not
no, no,
hearing
no,
me. I'm sorry. If you
no.
don't want to talk about the quarterback after a bad game and you only want to talk after good games, then that's a whole different conversation. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
we're
That's a
gonna
whole
talk
yeah,
about it. We're gonna
yeah.
talk
Like
about it. Do you
yeah.
okay? Well, the actual question at hand, oddly enough, we haven't even talked about the actual question at hand, which is,
Mhm.
do you believe that this is Purdy what he is without his weapons? Like, is this it, or is there more to it?
No, this defense was really good.
Hmm.
They I don't want to say, yeah. It's it's not fair to look at Brock at his literal worst and say, well, this is it. This is what he is.
Right.
That's bullshit. You can't do that. We're we are, and we saw that. We saw a lot of that.
Yeah,
Like,
we did.
oh, he's trash.
We
It's
did.
just like,
A
bro,
lot of people
that
were waiting.
a lot of people were waiting for this type
Yeah.
of game. But honestly, he did have a bad game, but he wasn't prepared. It looked like the game was moving a little bit too fast for him, and it was in bad weather. We still don't know what the mean is for Brock, right? We don't know how he if where that mean is, if he's regressed to the mean or not. So we do still need to see proof of concept. But one thing I will say, teams are gonna start playing man against us. No more of that zone shit.
Yeah,
Um,
but see, only so many teams can actually execute.
yeah,
Like that.
only a certain few can pull it off.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Right.
Is like you can have all the answers. You can have all the answers, but if you don't have the players to actually make this work, and I mean, Cleveland might be the team. Like there might be one team that could actually do what Cleveland did. I think, and you and I have talked about this. I said it to you multiple times. The team
Mhm,
that I actually think matches up best with the 49ers offense is the Seattle defense. But
mhm,
even they can't necessarily do what Cleveland does because they don't have the pass rush. Now, on the back end, they match up phenomenally with the 49ers all the way through CMC, all the way through Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, everything. I
mhm,
feel I feel like they have that figured out,
mhm.
but can they get home with 4? I don't think that they necessarily can. I think that that's going to be an issue for them. Cleveland might just be one of one. And so having the game plan is great. I'll give you an example. I think Seattle actually
Seattle can
had
play man against us.
but can they get home with
Jaguars
4
can play man
and
against us. Philly can
mm,
play man against us.
here's the thing. You can play man, but again, can you get home with 4 at the same time? What I'm saying is, I
Mhm.
actually think, coach, I actually think Seattle had all the right answers last year when they
They
played the
didn't have the
49ers.
dogs though.
They just didn't have the horses to get it
They didn't have the
done.
dogs. Yeah,
They
they
didn't
had the
have it.
game plan, but they didn't have
They
the
had the right
dogs.
game plan. Now,
Yeah.
the game plan that they had, Dallas took. Dallas was a little bit more talented defense and they could execute better. And so that's
They
why they
lost
were able to
Pollard.
hold the 49ers to 19. So
Mhm.
it's all about not just knowing, but having the players to do it. And there's really not many teams that can do that at all.
There's
At all.
really not. And honestly, these games. we're talking about tenths of a second, right? Again, majority of the league is not even going to be able to be good enough to get us into these issues on a game during a game. They just don't have the dogs. They don't have the team to make us play 60 minutes and luck up and lose two of our number one players on offense. That counts as well. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily I don't necessarily feel like um we're doomed, but we're not, how can I say this? Like, we're not immune to the game, right? If you play long enough, there is a game plan to beat every team in the NFL. And all we're saying is that we don't want the Niners to lose. But what the Browns did, they didn't just win. We were averaging 30 points a clip, okay? They put on a master class at how to make our offense look bad. And they did that. And they showed a lot of things that this is another thing that worries me about this loss. There wasn't a lot of like special shit that they were doing. They were out physicaling us. They
Hmm.
were being tougher than us. They were refusing to be blocked, right? Like the calling card of our offense is yak. Our offense is predicated upon getting the ball into spaces and the players being able to get yards after the catch to make dynamic plays, right? Turning 5 yards into 15 yards, turning 10 yards into 20 yards, right? Well, the antithesis of that from a spiritual defensive perspective is we're never blocked. We're never blocked. So even if there's a man in front of us, we're not blocked. If you block me as a corner, I'm fighting you tooth and nail. I'm sacrificing my body. Even if I know that I have to get pancaked, if I can steal space and mess up the flow of this, I will. If I'm a defensive lineman and I see you going on the screen, Aaron Banks, I'm going to hold you with Trent Williams to make sure that you don't get out in space so our linebackers get there. If I'm Dalvin Tomlinson, I'm not worried about getting to the quarterback because I'm just bull rushing Aaron Banks. I'm just bull rushing Spencer Burford the entire game. They just dragged us into the mud. They made a real mess of things. And the thing that was crazy about it is that they had a little crackerjack offense that really couldn't do anything to back it
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
But they didn't have nothing on offense to really honor what their defense was doing to us. But if they had a little bit of something on offense, which they showed at times that they could do, all right, we'd have been in trouble. And that's the way the NFL works. That's the way football works. That tape that the Browns put on us is in everybody's office today. And everybody's watching that tape. And that's just the facts. That's competitive nature of the game, right? And I see in the beginning of the year, I had us going 9-8, right? And I'll be the bozo. It's cool. I'll be the clown, but I will not change what I said. I said 9-8 because I was worried about us running the ball without Christian McCaffrey and stopping the run. That's what I was worried about. And we lost to the Browns because we stopped running the ball and we could not stop the run. That's why we lost.
Do you think it's as simple as just Dre Greenlaw not playing? Like, is this defense that bad at stopping the run when Dre Greenlaw's not playing? Because again, the Browns, it's not like they have elite running backs. Like Kareem Hunt's good, right? But
Yeah, he's okay.
he's not elite anymore.
Hmm.
And they were missing their best offensive lineman. I mean, that was actually kind of surprising to
It
see
was.
them do that because we saw it all preseason and we talked about it and we got worried. And then it was like the season started and it just every week they kept proving it and proving it and proving it. And then this week it just all fell apart. And the only thing that I can point to is, well, Dre Greenlaw wasn't there. Like, is he really that crucial to
Yes.
if he's just like that can't happen either, right? Like
Yeah.
we
That's
talked
a
about
problem.
CMC and Purdy. I mean, CMC and Debo being out and how they couldn't muster up offense and how that can't happen. Well, you can't be without one player on defense and completely fall apart.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Right now, Dre Greenlaw is class personified as being the tone setter on our defense.
Hmm.
Full stop.
Yep.
Fred is the leader. I get it. Nick is our, he's our pillow princess. He's our guy, 34 million. But the heartbeat of this defense is Dre Greenlaw. And we looked like a wolf with no teeth out there. If I can't count how many game tackles we had to have against this running back core of the Cleveland Browns. We were not getting one for one putting anybody on the ground. There was nobody pushing anybody back. There was nobody delivering a blow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in the run game, in the run game. All right. And to be quite honest, it looked like run defense by committee. There was actually nobody leading the charge. And I'm gonna tell you, I like I like what we have at our linebacking core, but there's a huge drop off when Dre Greenlaw is not on the field. It's evident. It is evident. And really, their running game just kind of suffocated us. It wasn't dynamic, right? It wasn't creative. It was very simple and downhill and they couldn't stop it. That's the worst type of run game that you can't stop because it's no frills. We're running left. Stop us. And we could not stop them in the run game. And it was slow and methodical. So for me, Dre being out of our linebacking core is way bigger than um a lot of other people on our defense that we could do without a lot of people on that defense, but without Dre, um, teams aren't afraid of us. They ran up and down the field. At one point, this is a fact. You can say what you want, but this is a fact. At one point, the Browns had more rushing yards than we did total offense, and that was in the third quarter. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big deal.
Yeah, Greenlaw is just very, very physical. You know, he's our Quan Alexander, our emotional leader. He's physical. He's, all
Mhm.
those things. Brother Bob says, win now. Let's draft and rely on a rookie kicker and overuse CMC. All right. All right. All right. All right. He says, I'm going off the deep end. We have a shaky kicker. All
We
day,
do
every
though.
day, all day, every day. Kim says TL was crucified for a Monsu game. Brock fanboys loved for a sprinkled football. Yeah, here's what I'll say. A lot of people have been bringing this up, and my
Mhm.
response back to this comment when I saw it on Twitter. I haven't really seen it so much here, but when I saw it on Twitter, was you can't police everybody. You just be consistent in what you were in, and I can tell you this. I tweeted out that the rain seemed to be affecting Brock. I
Yeah.
gave that grace back then to Trey, and I'm going to do the same thing to Brock. It would be completely unfair and just
Be
not
disingenuous.
disingenuous and untrustworthy of me if I did anything other. What I
Mhm.
will say is Trey's gone. Like I don't even want to talk about that, but Brock, what was bad about Sunday was it wasn't good in the first half. And I tweeted out the only two times that Brock's looked human was in the rain in Seattle for a quarter. And a lot of people chalk that up to nerves. And I said, I don't think it's nerves. I think it was because it was raining. And I said that live and in the moment, and people just kind of poo-pooed it.
Mhm.
Then when it started raining in this game, you could see it was bothering him. It was bothering him. Now, it's not the hand size because he has bigger hands than Trey Lance. He has more than adequate size hands for a quarterback. So that is not the issue. But he did struggle in the rain. But what was worse was there was no rain in the second half, and he struggled even more. And
Yeah.
that's where I was like, okay, we can't just put it on the weather because the first half was inclement weather. Okay, if that was the only thing, and then he'd kind of built up from there, you can chalk it up to weather. It was worse in the second half, and there was no rain. So,
Right.
that's what happened there. And that parlays into this question that I started, and it was Don't Bother Me says, Jesse, you followed Purdy a little bit in college. My question is, did he have problem in rain games? I
That's a
can't
good question.
recall a situation of him having problems in rain games. Um, Nothing jumps out to me. Nothing jumps out to me. So, and that would be something that I would have called out in a scouting report if I had seen it and talked about it. There was a lot of things that I talked about Brock that I liked. There was some things that I thought he needed to clean up. That was not one of them. I did not have a check mark next to concern and inclement weather. I didn't see that. So I don't know why that's happening at this level, if it's coincidence or whatever. So Brother Bob says, you guys shut your mouths. PP told me. Crown Brock Purdy now. All right. Come on now. Come on.
I mean,
SFB.
it is getting a little old, man. Like the whole like quarterback thing. It's just
It's
um
always going to be a topic, man. Until the 49ers win a Super Bowl, coach. Yeah, listen, you're
yeah.
way too early in this to be getting quarterback fatigue, all
I
right?
know, man.
You
I
can't be
know.
getting
I'm
quarterback
showing way
fatigue
I am.
way too early.
I'm a rookie in this. I'm a rookie in this because I am. I'm kind of getting tired of talking about the quarterback shit. It's just like Brock's the guy, bro. Like, and if he has a bad game, he has a bad game. But
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I'm tired of like the tribal shit around it. Like, it's way too much. I feel like it's an American election. It's like that type of
It
toxic
really
shit.
no, you're definitely right about that. That can be frustrating. SF Bay drummer says I saw Trey throw dimes in the rain with less weapons. All right, listen, he's not here anymore. He's not here.
He's gone.
And again, going back to the previous comment, you can't police everybody. Just be consistent. If you gave grace then, give grace today. If you didn't give grace, this goes both ways. If you were unwilling to give grace then don't give grace today. Just be consistent. That's all I ask. But you
I
can't
know.
police everybody.
You
Uh
can't.
Brother Bob says, what? Can't be Kyle. We just extended him. God, Brother Bob is so off the deep end. Brother Bob, you've been on point with your predictions
Dog,
all
I love
season
Brother
long when
Bob,
we've gone behind the enemy lines.
son.
This is the 1 week you were very far off, and I feel like I need to reel you in. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Brother Bob says BP never has bad days. He's the real deal. Okay, golly, come on.
As a bad.
We knew he was going to have bad days. Everybody has bad days.
Yeah,
Brother
I
Bob
mean, we
says,
knew.
as bad as Purdy looked, if we had a reliable kicker, he's so mad at Moody, man. He's so mad. X the chef says, Fred was getting muscled. We needed Greenlaw. Okay. I didn't have this as a topic, but I do remember
They watching film, Jess.
prior to the season starting, I made a comment that I thought was a pretty universally known comment when I was on Larry's channel with Fish. It was the three of us. We do this roundtable every week where we kind of rotate through.
Mhm.
And I said it like a throwaway comment because I thought it was just common knowledge. And
Right.
I said something along the lines of, Fred's the best linebacker in the game, no doubt about that, but he is not the physical cog
He
on this
ain't
team.
that.
And if he faces powerful running backs, he's either like grabbing and gator rolling, a snag and drag type of tackle, or he's getting pushed back if they're meeting in the hole. And people lost their minds. They're like, "What? How could you?
What a
Oh my
sucker and
gosh!"
succotash.
He had the one good hit, the one physical hit against Pittsburgh, on their running back, and everybody's like, "See, you don't know what you're talking about." And then I was like, "Well, if I wanted to be petty, I could have gone the next 4 weeks and shown you exactly what I was talking about. I just didn't have time for it because I am actually pretty petty. Don't get me wrong, I can be petty with the
Mhm.
best of them, but he's not the most physical player. Doesn't mean he's not the best player, but that's where Greenlaw comes in. And that's why Greenlaw and Fred Warner together are so perfect because everything that Greenlaw can't do, Fred is elite at.
They're
And
perfect for each
everything
other.
that Fred's not great at, Greenlaw's elite at. And they just
Mhm.
complement each other so damn well. They
Mhm.
really are the perfect
Pair.
duo. They're
Yeah.
perfect together. But you're right. I think Greenlaw is certainly, and you talked about it earlier, Greenlaw is the more physical player.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no doubt
He's
about it.
definitely more
It's not a
physical. I
hot
mean,
take.
and even if you look at Dre, like this isn't even from a perspective of his physicality is all good. At times, Dre gets way too physical and gets penalties, right? So this is more to highlight the perfect match more than call it A versus B or a one versus two.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is just to point out the fact that the reason why their play is elevated is because Fred himself has said, like, yo, I need Dre. I can't do this without him. I need Dre. And I feel like a lot of that is Fred is smart enough because a good leader understands the support around him. And
Yeah.
if I'm Fred, I would realize, hey, I got a Sam that'll knock you in the dirt Okay. And I'm going to use that. Right. So it's nothing to point out as a deficiency, but it is something to realize how they go about being elite. Because I feel like that's why our linebacking core is elite, not because we have a lot of the same guys, but because they all complement each other.
Yeah, and I think this is where people lost it a little bit is that people thought I was calling him soft, and anything but. Like Fred Warner, I'm not saying Fred is soft. He's anything but he's just not as physical as Greenlaw. He's just not, and that much is very, very clear. And outside the echo chamber says coverage is more finesse, and it is. It's like I'll say this. I'll liken it to basketball. Fred Warner is your 3-point shooter, and Greenlaw is your in the paint player.
Hmm.
Like that's just what it is. Fred Warner's gonna pull the trigger from deep, and Greenlaw's gonna go down low and bang. That's it, and
Yeah.
that's okay. You need each other, but you need each other to be the best self or individual you can be. Dre is
Yeah.
definitely the thumper. Yes, absolutely,
Yeah. Like
absolutely.
Fred is
He's
Kobe.
always this close to getting a penalty. We talk about it every
Yeah,
week.
Fred is
That's
Kobe, but Dre is definitely Shaq. Like for real.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's talk about this from a perspective of CMC is going to miss time. I think if I'm the 49ers and it comes down to pain tolerance, I think
Mhm.
CMC minimum should miss this game. Some people are saying, hey, just rest him through the next 2 weeks. You get the bye. He comes back fully healthy. I'm fine with that as well. But I
Right.
think this week is a game that I look at and I say, okay, everything that Cleveland was to give the 49ers struggles is not at all what the Minnesota Vikings are. They're polar opposites.
No,
Cleveland
not
ran
at
the
all.
ball. The
Yeah.
Vikings can't.
No.
Cleveland has a great defense. The Vikings don't.
The Vikings
So
don't.
this is not that game.
This
Oh,
is not.
and you're worried about inclement weather? Well, we're in a dome.
We're in a
So
dome.
everything that you struggled with last week when you didn't have CMC is not going to be a problem this week. So
Right.
this is a game that they should win regardless. I believe CMC should be out. That being said, let's assume he does miss this game.
Hmm.
How do you think they should handle things to make sure that they don't have a repeat performance in this game offensively where they just can't get things going without CMC?
Well, when styles make fights, so we're
Mhm.
playing a much lesser talented team on defense than the week before. I think this is a get right game. I think this is the type of game where we, like I said before, I want to see more of TDP. I want to see more of JP Mason. I want to see more of Elijah Mitchell. I feel like offensive lines are like cars, man. You got to warm up the engine. And sometimes if you're going to have a knockdown, drag out day, you got to start with running the ball. You got to set the tone and let these boys know, hey, man, buckle it up. All right. We going to be banging today. All right. And that's all we going to be doing. All right. And I feel as though that this is the team where you I mean, let's be honest, man. They took our ball. We got to go get our ball back. You know what I'm saying? They took our ball. You know what I'm saying? We gotta go get it back. Brown snatched a little bit of our identity, right? And that's the way the NFL works, man. It's a man's league. If somebody does something to you in front of everybody, the next time you come out, man, you can't be coming out there talking about how's the weather. No, we cuz smacked you last time you was out here. What you gonna
Yeah.
do about it?
Yeah.
That's the way the league is, man. Like,
Yeah.
ain't nobody out here saying, "Oh, well, maybe if the Niners, if even if we played Minnesota and didn't dominate them and we still won, there are people who look at the league a certain way that would still not be satisfied with that win and be like, they still soft. They just beat up on Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? I really want us to go reestablish our identity. We're the bullies in the yard. That's what we was doing for the first 5 weeks of the season, and that's
Yeah.
definitely how they was playing, and that's definitely how we walked into Cleveland. We walked into Cleveland like we owned the place and got smacked in the mouth. We got to own that. That happened. So it wasn't the fact that we just lost. We ain't just lose. All right. We kind of got embarrassed. We kind of had to eat some crow, man. Because everybody saw the way we ended that Dallas game, the way we started that Cleveland game. That's a bad look, especially for a team that's supposed to be going deeper into the playoffs. So we ain't got to come into Minnesota throwing the ball and looking all cute. It's going to be good to see him zipping the ball all over the place on a shitty defense. But I want to see us punch somebody in the mouth, because
Yeah.
you can't do that crap that we was doing before the game and then put out that type of performance, man. Got to go get your ball back, man. Cuz smacked you, man. You better do something about it. So that's how I feel. Like, we need to establish the run, and we need to be bullies in the yard, because this is a team that everybody's expecting us to beat. So we got to do them dirty. Like, we got to set an example. That's what I want to see us do when CMC isn't there, if he is not there. And even if he is there, man, I feel that, I mean, shoot, man, ditto, carbon copy. That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't have a lot of blame necessarily for just Kyle Shanahan this last game, and like I talked about, to me, he lost that game by not easing off of CMC the 5 weeks prior. He didn't know how
Yeah.
to game plan without CMC. And last year, the 49ers averaged around 18 points a game before CMC got there. That jumped all the way up to 26 once he got there, and then Purdy brought it up to another level. But when you look at the 49ers, let's not forget that the 2019 team averaged 30 points a game, 29.9 points per game. Okay. So he's figured out how to put up points without CMC in the past. I actually think CMC sitting out is a good thing, especially against a team like Minnesota, because you're right. I mean, this is a get right game. This can give all the other players a ton of confidence. And I'll tell you right now, I'm kind of going through it with coaching my son in flag football. So we basically play all year round except for summer, right? There's two twins that are on the team normally, that are like the players on the team. Like, these kids are well above their age as far as their skill level, everything.
Right.
And we relied on them a ton. But they're not playing this season. They're going to be here for the next couple seasons, but they're not playing this one season because they're playing their tackle football, which means everybody else on the team had to grow and kind of fill the role. And so all of a sudden, we're relying on everybody else. And the first game was really rough. But as the season has gone, everybody else has stepped up and shown, hey, we don't need just two players. Like, we can play a little bit as well. And we've started winning games. That's what I feel like the 49ers have to prove is, listen, CMC is a great player, the best offensive player on this team.
Yeah.
But you've done it without him. And I'm going to throw this out there. Without Debo and without CMC, I'm going to compare the 49ers weapons to some of the other teams in the league that are good teams, that are winning teams, that have elite quarterbacks, but their weapons aren't so great. And I would put Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. Who do you prefer, Mason, or do you prefer Elijah Mitchell?
Mason.
Okay, so we agree. So I'm going to put Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Jordan Mason up against some of these other teams' weapons, and you tell me who you would take.
All right.
Would you take Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason, or would you take Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rashee Rice?
Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice.
You would take them over Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason? I mean, Kelsey's the best out of all of them. There's no arguing that.
Kelsey is the best out of all of them. I would go with Ayuk because Ayuk is a better receiver. But Pacheco, I like Pacheco.
I like Pacheco a lot, but Rashee Rice is like young and not whatever,
he's
right?
very young. Yeah. So I would go with our guys. I would go with Kittle.
But it's
Mason,
okay. It's close. Regardless who, it's close, right? Like, it's not
right.
Okay. Would you go James Cook, Stefan Diggs, Gabe Davis, or would you go Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason?
Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason.
Would you go Gus Edwards, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, or Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason?
Ayuk, Kittle, and Mason.
Okay. My point is that even without the embarrassment of riches and Debo and CMC, the 49ers have enough to go win games. Like, those teams that I just named are doing it week in and week out when that is the only option. Okay. They don't have the luxury of losing their two best weapons and still being sufficient. They deal with that every week. They find out a way to win football games and put up points. So, Kyle, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I like,
Ayuk,
dude.
Kittle, and Mason is enough for you to go put up points against a bad defense this week. And I do think actually Debo's probably going to play. So you even have now the step up on these guys.
Jess, I agree 1000%, man. Like, we lost CMC and Debo, and all of a sudden we started looking at our team like we were the Washington
Couldn't figure it
Generals.
out. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like they lost their best player. It's like, bro, George was a no-show. And part of George being a no-show is that he was too busy blocking because our offensive line was getting they ass whooped. It's the truth, bro. Like, just watch the film, man. Right? That's why George wasn't being able to get detached and get out there because he was too busy blocking. All right. Brandon Ayuk got strapped. It's the truth. He got strapped. All right. And if you look at JP Mason, he didn't play enough. He's the type of back where he's not going to be able to just get the ball in one-offs or well, nah, man. He's a first and second down back, man. You got to give him the ball. All right. You got to commit to it, right? And I feel like when we're not operating the offense the way Kyle wants, right? When I see all of those weapons on the field for our offense, right? What's crazy to me is there's only one ball, right? So essentially, Kyle gets to play with all of this leverage with all of these players on one field at once. And it's like, yes, it's beautiful that you can scheme things wide open on a routine basis, but you have an embarrassment of riches on offense, man. The least you can do is to be able to operate the offense when you lose like your crazy players. Like Brandon Ayuk is still a solid receiver. Okay, George Kittle is still class personified as tight end, top
Mm-hmm.
three, if not top five. JP Mason can get downhill and run the ball, but I just feel as though that there's not enough go to circle the wagon plays for this offense because we're too busy front running. Like, if you think about it, our offense really isn't deep. We're front heavy. We're top heavy. We are top heavy. We're not really deep, right? Like we have Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Trent Williams, who else? Debo Samuel, right? But after Christian McCaffrey, there's a huge drop off in talent in the running back room, especially in how they're used, right? In the offense, right? After George Kittle is done, there's a gigantic drop off in talent, as in the tight end room. If Trent Williams goes down, just the collective offensive line completely drops down if he's not there, right? So for me, I look at our defense as being more of the depth side of what we bring on the offensive side. I mean, on for our team, but our offense, man, if we lose like one or two guys, man, that offense looks completely different, bro. And I don't see us as having depth because we can't put in guys that do the same thing if other guys are missing. So, how sound is our offense is if we have players that can only do certain things in our offense, but once they're gone, we can't utilize any of those plays anymore. Like, that's not sound.
Mike, I agree with the second half of your comment. The first half, I disagree. I'm pretty sure I'll have to go look at it again. I think he was actually ran routes 83% of the time. So he was blocking 17% of the passing plays and then ran routes 83% of the time. So I actually don't think he was, and his season average is 82, I think. So he was right in line with his season average. He was actually running a lot of routes. The second half, however, yes, running in soaking wet grass is not easy, but Kittle's elite, man. Kittle is elite. He's got to show
Bruh.
that, man. As far as a tight end goes, he's still elite. He has to, they have to do a better job of getting him involved. They absolutely have to. They absolutely have to. So,
Yeah. I mean, it was just a frustrating game from a standpoint
yeah.
of it was below standard. We're better than this. But offensively, if we don't have, that's just not realistic for us to roll out all of those weapons week in and week out. It's just
Yeah.
not realistic. It's not. And if this is how we look, sans a couple of players, like, come on, man. Like, what we doing in there? That's not on the players. That's coaching.
Yeah, most definitely. And like I said, I'm not putting a lot of blame on him this last game, but going forward, if you don't have it, it is very, very different knowing you're not going to have it and game planning around it versus losing it mid game. And I
Mhm.
expect them to have a very sound game plan going forward.
I agree
James
with you,
T.
Big Heck. I agree with Big Heck right there. Big Heck just
What do you say?
put a comment. He said Kittle was mainly on McKivit's side. Shaking my head. We should have snatched the right tackle when we got a chance. I mean, and the right tackle that we could have snatched was actually doing a good job against Nick Bosa the entire game.
Yeah, but again, I'll have to look at it again. I'm almost positive he ran routes 83% of the time. So he was out there. He was running routes. He just wasn't part of the game plan. He got targeted twice. James T. Kirk says there's an injury update floating around YouTube that Debo, Trent, and CMC do not have serious injuries. Yeah, the way I understand it is CMC is about pain tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want. There's just no reason to play him this week. Like, give him a rest. Give him a rest.
Mm-hmm.
Get him ready to play the Bengals, who are getting hot.
They're
That's a
getting better.
team. That's a team that without CMC, I wouldn't feel as good about that I
Mm-hmm.
do with Minnesota. So if you're gonna play him, I would rather just rest him now, play him against the Bengals. Then you have a bye week. I have no issue with that. Are not that serious. Kirk is out. Kirk Cousins? I don't think Kirk's
No,
got
is
any
he really?
injuries. No, I don't think so. Vish, pissed off brother Bob, says, don't like these reasonable analysis. I want crazy.
I mean, like we're trying our best to the sky isn't falling, but uh we're trying to give the perspective of what we see, honestly,
Yeah,
not trying to lie, but really kind of like how the league sees us too, right? Like
for
we
sure.
all have friends and family who are part of other teams, right? And they see us a certain way. Like I got friends who look at the Niners and they're like, "Man, I thought y'all was the bullies, man." Like we saw that Cleveland game, like they hung foot in y'all ass. Like that's what people are really saying. And for us to sit here and act like, oh, we'll be fine. Like, come on, man. Don't be cucked. Like, look at your team with the screw in the side. Like, it's okay. They're okay. Like, they'll be
Well,
fine.
and that's what the 49ers are doing. That's what teams do to themselves. They self-scout. You think that they came in today and was like, guys, it's fine.
Right.
Moody, you're the best. Brock, you're perfect. No, they didn't
Kyle
do
was
any of
going
those things.
off. I know
Kyle was
Kyle
going
was
off.
snapping.
Hopefully people are holding Kyle accountable. Like this is the way it works. Like
Right.
we're being a lot nicer than what they are doing to themselves. I guarantee that.
Mhm.
Brother Bob says, ha ha ha, Cuss smacked you. I just want to smack Moody. What's up, official B&A Music? He says, we need to beat Minnesota so bad that Kyle publicly deads
Dead's
the
the Kirk
Kirk
Cousins
Cousins
reunion.
reunion. And
Justin
Justin
Jefferson is the
Jefferson
you
sends
up
a you
text.
up text.
Justin Jefferson's in IR though, man. Like this is
Yeah,
this is a favorable game for us, man.
very
I
favorable.
really want us to be able
Yeah.
to show up and just hold court. Like,
Well, it is prime time. Kittle's going to show up. Kittle
oh,
always
it's
shows up
prime
in prime
time.
time. Kittle's going to play well. Yeah.
Dog, if it's prime time,
Yeah.
George is showing up in a in an inflatable balloon. Something's gonna go crazy with George. He's gonna have props. Something's gonna happen because the cameras are on.
Yeah.
It's just what he does.
Keith Murphy says, I would sit Debo and CMC this week and CMC through the bye. Am I wrong? And to me, he seems anti-Mason. Why? Yeah, the comment today was they asked him about Mason. Will they play Mason
Mhm.
or will they play Mitchell or start? And he said, well, Mitchell's kind of earned being the starter here. I don't understand that, but also I
I
wouldn't
don't
look
get that shit at all,
I
bro.
don't
Like we
either. I don't either, coach, but I also don't want to look too far into it because just because you're the starter does not mean you're the closer or does not mean you get more carries. Like you may be in on the first series, but that does not mean that you're the guy when
Mhm.
you really need plays. So they may start. I'll give you an example. Do you remember who the starting run after Mostert went absolutely crazy the final couple weeks of the season and in the playoffs and in the NFC Championship had a historical game? Do you remember who started in the Super Bowl?
Don't make me say it. Tevin Coleman.
Tevin Coleman started in the Super Bowl.
I was so God, I was so blown, bruh. I was like, dog, all right, now being the smartest guy in the room is one thing, but damn it, Kyle, you have taken it too far. Like, I
Yeah.
did not understand. And he didn't play good.
So, this is just Kyle. Kyle does these things, but Mostert was still the guy. It was just Coleman started. So,
Yeah. I
um,
will never understand that move, bro. I was like, is he? I had to like refresh my shit. I was like, hold on. That ain't say Tevin Coleman. Hold on, let me refresh my shit. Let me see.
because Coleman almost didn't play. He was
He
like
didn't.
questionable going into the game, and then they're like, he's starting. I was like, okay, that's weird. Uh, Keith Murphy comes back and says, Kyle said he wasn't as prepared when CMC and Debo went out. Yeah, we talked about that. He is not prepared when they're injured when CMC and Debo. Yeah, he's basically saying, like, really? He's not prepared for when these guys go out. I feel it,
Right.
man.
Like the
That's
history that they have, the fact that he was not prepared. Like,
okay. Okay. Can I say this? And I don't think anybody else has caught it. And this is the first time I'm bringing it up. I didn't even bring it up to you in our conversations over the last couple of days. There was a moment in that game where the defense was on the field and the Browns had just committed a penalty. And they're like, trying, it was like taking forever. We're like, what is going, why is it taking so long to get this going? And the announcer goes, oh, they're trying to get Kyle away from basically being his face in his play sheet so that he can figure out if he wants to accept
if
the
he wants to
penalty or
accept
not.
the penalty,
It's
yeah.
like, bro, you were not ready, man. You
I
were
saw that.
not as
I saw
ready
that.
as what you should have been,
Yeah.
clearly. Like, you were not
Like
head in the game.
I saw Kyle shaking hands before the kick. Like they
Like they had
cut to
won.
him. Yes, I saw
Yeah.
him dapping people up behind him before the kick was made. Like,
Interesting.
and we missed. It's just all these little things, man, that like you have to be honest. If you're a true fan of the Niners and you've been around before this, like when we had Coach Harbaugh, we had more of like Coach Harbaugh understood kind of like the class of the game, right? How you're supposed to move forward with the game. We didn't get, and I feel like we didn't notice that we had that with Coach Harbaugh until we got Chip,
Mm.
and then realized that Chip is not a football coach. He's just a guy who knows football. There's a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like all of that prestige, class, and quite frankly, credibility was completely blown out of the window when we got Chip Kelly. And I feel like with Kyle, we've kind of like shielded over some of our class and how we go about our business for like the genius route. Like, oh, we know how to go about business. We're so good. So we can be dicks. We could be assholes. We can lose a game and then act like we didn't lose and go around the whole press and, or we can wear like the thing that blows me about George's like F Dallas shirt is that, yo, my man, you had that shirt on. What if we lost? You mean to tell me you'd have walked in the locker room with that shirt on, knowing that you lost? Like, it's like the premeditated shit that they do is disrespectful to the game because it means that you have so much time to worry about that shit that you don't care about winning. Like you think you have winning in the bag. Like starting a fight before the game against a team who's coming off the bye, who they're 2-2. This wasn't even like a prime time type game. But we're doing that stuff. Even after the game, we lost. What do we have to endure on Twitter all day today? Debo going back and forth with Gardner Johnson. Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, that is not a good look. And I know I'm coming off like the old man, get off my lawn, but man, there's just a class. There's a way how you go about winning. And I don't like the way we going about things right now. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah. He- Going back to the original conversation about like what could Kyle have done better when we started this show, like I said, to me, it was just you got to be more prepared when CMC was out. I think a lot of
Mhm.
that was just overusing him, possibly the first few weeks. I didn't have a lot of criticism in the middle of the game, so it wasn't necessarily him is the reason that they lost. I'm
Mhm.
just looking more forward to, okay, what do you do if CMC is out? Because you're good enough to get this done. You did score 30 points a game in 2019 without CMC. Like you can do that again. You're fine. But Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the other thing I was going to say though is that has Kyle has improved a lot on the little leadership intangible things that I've always kind of complained about with Kyle. Like, as great of a coach as he has been at times, I've always picked apart the leadership style of things. And I tweeted it out, I think Monday after the press conference. It is refreshing listening to Kyle this year
Mhm.
talk the way that he talks. He takes blame. He like is going out of his way to say that's on me. That's on me. That's
Yeah,
on
yeah,
me.
it's different. I
It
noticed
is
it.
different and it's refreshing. Like that to me is a leader who's growing into his leadership style and understanding that these were flaws that he's had. That is not easy to do at 40 something years old, to turn around
Mhm.
what you are and what you've always been. And I praised him for that. I think it was after the what game was it that CMC played all game? Was it the Rams game
Mhm.
where he didn't come out a single snap? I forget what game it was, but after the game he's like, "Hey, that's on me." Like,
Rams.
I got I got to recognize when CMC has been in there all
He needs a
game.
blow. Yeah.
Like, so it was there. Then it was like talking about, how a missed throw by Purdy was on him, or Purdy took a sack or something and that was on him as well. And then
He said it
today
parked in a
again
bad
doing it
position.
after a loss and saying, "Hey, there was a lot of things that weren't right, but ultimately it starts with me." Dude,
Like, that's fucking
so
different.
awesome. So
That is
refreshing.
so different. And, like,
Yeah.
for all of, like, that's really all we've been looking at and noticing for years about Kyle, where it's like,
Yeah.
bro, like, you pass the buck so much, man. Like, you are always kicking the can, especially when nobody, even after losses, nobody even really gives a fuck about how it happened. We just need somebody to take blame. Somebody stand up and say, all right, as you know, it was a shit show today, but it's on me, right? It starts with me, right? That answers so many small little questions that happen in losses. And I feel like Kyle is starting to understand that, like, it doesn't hurt anybody for you to just acknowledge the obvious, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, half the time when we're asking you to just say, like, hey, this one's on me, or I could have did better here. It's not like you had the game behind closed doors and you're hiding the results from us. We know it was your fault. Just come out and admit it. In a lot of different instances, it does nothing but gain you points. It does nothing
Always.
but
It
help
always
you,
gains you,
right?
especially because and it's not gaining points with us or the media or whoever. It's gaining point. You're like, okay, it's been a while since I've used this, so I'm going to bring it out again. Listen, I am not any more of an expert than any of you in the chat when it comes to football. All right. And I'm not going to claim to be. I have my opinions. I feel like I'm well read, I'm well studied on the game. I watched a ton of football from other teams. So I feel like I'm coming from a pretty educated spot as a fan, but I
Mhm.
know that I'm not the only one that does this. Okay. Just because I'm on this side of the camera and you guys are on that side, I'm not ever going to pretend like I'm smarter than everybody else. Now we'll debate and we'll disagree and all those things. But one thing that I do pride myself in knowing that I've dedicated a big portion of my life to is leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Kyle Shanahan, when I start to notice these things, and I've called these exact things out for years, and then I start to notice it, and our coach is saying, "Oh, he's talking different now." I really encourage you to listen to those press conferences. He is. But when we talk about getting cachet with your team, leadership coach is reverse poker. And here's what I mean by
Mhm.
that. In poker, if you and I are going heads up in poker, you're trying to take all my chips and I'm trying to take all your chips. Like, that's the name of the game. Who can take the other person's money all the way out? Who can
Mhm.
bankrupt the other person? In leadership, it's opposite poker, meaning you are trying to give as many leadership chips out as you can. And the
Mhm.
reason you're doing that is because you're going to have to look these guys in the eye at some point and you're going to have to ask them to go all in. And if they don't have any chips that you've given them and deposited in their bank account for them to go all in with, how the hell are they going to do it? That's
Mhm.
what leadership is. And that is what Kyle Shanahan is doing. Every time he gets up there in front of everybody and says, it's
He's
on me,
cashing in.
blaming me, bro, he's depositing chips because he's going to look those guys in their eye in a tight game in the playoffs. And he's going to say, I
Give him
need you
back.
to go all in for me right now. I need the best you right now. Can you
Yeah.
give that to me? And they're going to say, Coach, absolutely, because you believed in me all season long. You fell on the spear when you didn't need to. I got you, Coach. That's what's going to happen. That's
Yeah.
leadership.
And I feel like it's hard for you to take on accountability when you have favorites as a leader. When you have favorites, um sometimes you want to be able to distance your little group of favorite guys, your little prized possessions away from the entire team. Um and it's hard to be accountable when you have sets of rules for specific guys, right? But when you treat everybody the same, it's easy to fall on your sword in front of your team because you could just be open about, hey man, this one was on me. I messed this up. I have to get better. That's not a message that you could tell to one side and then keep from the other. That's something that the entire room can hear, and you are going to put yourself on notice, right? Like you have to respond. I feel like, and that's kind of like the silent but after those things where it's like, hey, this one's on me. But if I don't get this shit done, I know my job is in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we all know the but it's like you never give us a chance to give you credit for saying the former, right? And understanding the latter. So for me, I do believe that Kyle is growing in that standpoint where uh not only that point that I made earlier, but another point that I wanted to make is that you do feel a little bit more galvanized to give grace and be more accountable when you quote unquote have the guy that you want. I think that Kyle really believes in Brock. And when you really believe in your quarterback, it's easy for you to say, hey guys, this one wasn't on him. This one was on me. I'm really galvanized to this kid's development. And the last thing that I want to do is send out a confusing message that makes it seem as though that his output or lack of performance doesn't in some way directly reflect on how I prepared him, right? And I don't think that I ever saw Kyle do that with Jimmy, which used to frustrate us because it wasn't as if we were huge Jimmy fans, but we just understood that it was toxic for a coaching player relationship. The fact that you never take responsibility, like that has got to be a toxic relationship. The fact that you have no problem throwing your quarterback under the bus time and time and time again. That speaks to your relationship with him. So the fact that Kyle is taking responsibility shows growth on his part, but it also does show growth in the fact that he likes the guy and is 100% behind the signal caller because we didn't see that from him from Trey. We didn't see that from him from Jimmy. Not at all. This is the only quarterback that I can honestly say that Kyle Shanahan has had where he may beat Kyle on the field and Kyle on the sidelines where he's coaching, but as far as the PR, how he's seen talking about Brock, I feel like Kyle understands that he may be on death's door with his reputation with quarterbacks, and he's got to be seen treating this kid like a rookie. He can't just bang him around because the I mean, the book is out on Kyle. You know, you struggle with quarterback. For everything great that you do, quarterback seems to be an issue for you, my man. So, what are you going to do to the guy that, and this is what I feel like Kyle was afraid of with Trey, but what are you going to do to the guy where nobody gives a fuck if you're a genius? Brock's a star. Your little system don't matter no more because we care about Brock succeeding. That's football. That's fans. Fans, if a quarterback is loved and they start struggling, ain't nobody getting rid of the quarterback. They're getting rid of the coach.
Yep.
And that's the conversation that Kyle does not want to have. He
Yep.
doesn't want the fan base to fall in love with Brock to the point where we would rather get rid of Kyle instead of getting rid of Brock. And Kyle understands that how he's seen treating Brock is a direct reflection on his job security because if Brock starts struggling, because he's young and he deserves grace to struggle. If Kyle doesn't take responsibility for how he's coaching this kid and completely just treats him like some stale, inanimate not object and throws him to the wayside, and we got Sam fucking Darnold playing for our team because Kyle had a short leash on this kid, you'll see the staunchest Kyle supporters cut bait and run because
Yeah.
that'll be 3 quarterbacks. Now, you didn't like Jimmy because he was too old and whatever. Cool. You didn't want to do with Trey for whatever reason. Thought he was too polarizing and entitled. Cool. What are you going to say about him screwing over Brock? What are you going to say then? So I think Kyle knows he has to be a little bit more accountable and to put his feet on the carpet because it's time out for this shit.
I don't disagree with that at all. Either way, he recognizes it and he's getting better. He's changing it, and I appreciate the leadership because I'm going to call it out. Keith says McLeod played well last year when Debo went out. Yeah, I think if CMC's there, especially, Ray is kind of like a poor man's Debo a little bit. He can do a lot of the same things. Daniel says it feels like we're racing for the #1 seed against the Eagles, but the Lions can't be ignored. Should the Niners be worried? The Niners shouldn't be worried. They should just be aware. Be aware that these teams are here
I
to
love
play
that.
for
Be
that
aware.
#1 seed
Yeah.
as well.
Just
Don't
be
be worried,
aware.
but be aware.
Yeah.
Like when fighters go into a fight, they don't say, "Hey, I'm scared of this man's power." They say, "Hey, I'm aware of it. Like I know that he can put my lights out. Doesn't mean I'm scared of it. I just need to know how to counter it." That's where the 49ers are at. Keith
Mm-hmm.
says Kyle should have went spread like the last drive earlier. Yeah, that was the only thing that I tweeted out during the game about Kyle. The only thing that I was taken back with when it came to Kyle during the game. Didn't have an issue with most of what he did, but I did tweet out, I wish they would get away from these tight formations and go spread.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. Official B&A Music says Kittle going to show up to Minnesota in a full Shawn Michaels attire in black Air Force Ones, ready to stand on business.
Stand on business. I'm standing on business.
Steve says blame the OC, wasn't ready and has running back tunnel vision.
I'm not mad at that.
Steve says Kyle needs a Mike McDaniel voice in his ear. Yeah, Mike McDaniel was definitely like the fun. Like he brought a lot of the pressure off for sure. Vish
Yeah.
says, Brother Bob says Moody had his family at the game and you crap the bed. Golly, man, you just are not letting it go. 808 Niners
I
says
love this comment. I
the
love
Cabo
this
click
comment.
is writing checks that
That is the most goated comment of the fucking show, dog. Yo. That is the best comment of the show. That comment is so fire. That comment is so fire.
That's too much.
It's the truth, bro. It's the truth.
Oh, that's actually really funny, man. Brother Bob says, ain't no way Kyle gonna ask for the best out of Moody, though.
No.
Keith says, I will say Brock never most complete to get us in field goal range after playing so bad showed me something. How many games did Brady win 13-10 on a Vinatieri leg?
That's so true. Vinatieri used to bail Tom's ass out year after year.
Yeah, early on, especially early on, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the thing, man. This is why I like Brock, like just from a personal level.
Yeah.
And this is different. This is different from Trey. Man, and it hurts me because it's just the truth, man. You got to recognize the truth. Brock got balls, man.
He
He's
does.
not afraid, man.
He does.
Like, and that's one thing that you can't coach that. You can't coach a kid that's fearless, that's got a heart that's bigger than his body. And you could see the anger on Brock's face when he couldn't compete the way he wanted to, man. So I will say, man, like there is a track for Brock to success. There is a lane for Brock to be literally the best quarterback that in the league. There is a lane for him, right? It's just we got to be pragmatic along the way and be truthful about what we see, because when he finally makes it there, it'll be so much sweeter. It'll be so much sweeter, the fact that we were critical and balanced and fair along the way, and we defended him when he needed to be defended, and we criticized him when he needed to be criticized. And he's a full quarterback in front of us. But you can't buff him. You can't you can't gloss his ground beef the entire way, thinking that he's gonna loving him the entire way isn't gonna turn him into the quarterback you think he is. You're
Yeah.
only doing him a disservice when you say ridiculous things about him at this early of an age. You just put a target on his back for people who are dishonest brokers. And you're a dishonest broker yourself when you try to say that he's way better than he is. It's not fair to him, right? It's selfish, quite honestly. But look, I think that he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. And the thing that I love about this is that the better he gets at this offense, the more Kyle has to bend the knee, because it's not going to be Kyle's scheme anymore. It's going to be Brock's offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
Yep.
wins us Super Bowls. All right. Patrick Mahomes isn't running Andy Reid's scheme. Andy Reid is running Patrick Mahomes' offense. There is a difference in that. And the moment Kyle takes a back seat and Brock gets elevated as the guy, as the real deal, then we'll see where our team can go. But we ain't winning no damn Super Bowl with no coordinator. That ain't happening.
Yeah, I listen, I couldn't agree anymore. You're absolutely right. Nothing to say against that. Coach, every time that we go live, man, I do this with everybody. I line up 5 topics.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we got through 2.
Okay.
This time we got through 3. So we're improving. we're making improvement, okay? At some point, you and I will do a show together where we make it through all 5 topics. But you and I are both East Coast guys. It's
Yeah.
already 11 o'clock. I'm not going to hold you any longer because you bailed me out tonight. But I do want to say this to the chat. Chat, we are doing an open mic tomorrow night. I know that you love the open mics over here at Last Second Sports. We haven't had one all season because during the off season, open mics are usually Wednesday night. And that's where Behind Enemy Lines comes in on Wednesday night. Well, this week, Behind Enemy Lines is actually Thursday afternoon. That's the only time that I could match up with the Vikings guy. So that means we have open mic for y'all tomorrow night. So make sure that you tune in, you get your takes ready. I think it's a perfect time to do it. Coming off a loss, some of y'all got to air some things out, brother Bob. I'm looking at you.
Brother Bob,
Right?
you got to show up.
You got to
You
get
got
some
to
things
show
off
up.
your chest, okay? And I'm here for it. But remember, we got the 5-minute time limit, and we take as many calls as we can, and we keep it going for about 2 hours. So tomorrow night, tap into that. Behind Enemy Lines will be Thursday, a little bit different this week. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to Coach's channel.
Bang, bang.
Bang Bang 49. Go check him out. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.